Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching A News. Let's see the headlines. The Venezuela earthquake toll rises to over 235 as rescuers race to find survivors under rubble. Tehran strikes a ship in the Strait of Hormuz as countries try to reopen the oil route. And the UK records its hottest day ever in June as health emergencies surge in Europe. The search for survivors continues in Venezuela after twin earthquakes devastated parts of the country, leaving at least 235 dead and more than 4,300 injured. The incident has triggered a major international relief effort as search for survivors intensifies.
Rescue teams in Venezuela are searching for survivors after a powerful pair of earthquakes left hundreds trapped beneath collapsed buildings, according to officials. Emergency crews continue searching through the rubble in Caracas and nearby regions as families wait for news of missing relatives. The quakes, measuring magnitudes 7.2 and 7.5, struck west of the capital on Wednesday evening, less than a minute apart, according to the US Geological Survey. Venezuelan authorities say they were among the strongest to hit the country in more than a century and were felt across the region, including northern Brazil. Authorities say the coastal state of La Guaira has suffered the worst destruction, with commercial buildings, residential blocks, and critical infrastructure reduced to rubble. At least 346 buildings, including 8 hospitals, have been damaged. Entire neighborhoods in Caracas, La Guaira, and surrounding areas have been destroyed, forcing mass evacuations and leaving many displaced. Hospitals in La Guaira have been overwhelmed by the number of casualties, while emergency supplies, including drinking water, continue to arrive in the affected areas. Operations at Simon Bolivar International Airport have been suspended and all flights cancelled, leaving many travelers stranded. International aid is being mobilized, with the United Nations coordinating the global response. The United States has deployed military aircraft, logistics teams, and search and rescue personnel to support relief operations. Colombia, Mexico, Spain, Cuba, and Panama are also sending emergency teams and humanitarian supplies, while China has mobilized rescue teams through its embassy in Caracas to assist with debris clearance and structural safety operations. The US Secretary of State said rescue operations are underway and a clearer assessment of the damage is expected within 48 hours. Authorities warn the disaster could cause economic losses of up to 7% of GDP, as Venezuela continues to face a severe political and economic crisis.
A magnitude 5.8 earthquake struck Japan's Chiba prefecture on Friday, shaking areas near Tokyo, according to Japanese authorities. The Japan Meteorological Agency recorded a maximum seismic intensity of 4 on its 7-level scale and confirmed that there is no risk of a tsunami. No information has yet been reported regarding casualties or damage following the quake. The latest tremor comes just a day after a powerful magnitude 7.2 earthquake was also recorded in Japan, raising concerns over continued seismic activity in the region. Maritime tensions are escalating in the Gulf following an attack on a commercial vessel near the Strait of Hormuz. The incident has prompted the suspension of an international escort operation, raising fresh concerns over the security of one of the world's busiest shipping routes.
The UN International Maritime Organization paused its operation to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday, following an attack on a vessel in the Gulf of Oman. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Centre had earlier said a cargo vessel was hit by an unknown projectile off Oman, causing damage to the ship's bridge. No casualties or environmental damage were reported. Reuters sources identified the ship as the Singapore-flagged Ever Lovely, while a security source said it was likely targeted by a drone. 2 US officials also told Reuters that Iran had fired on the ship, while Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority said vessels outside routes it has set will not be guaranteed safe passage. Secretary-General Arsenio Dominguez said to ensure coordinated approach and navigational safety, the IMO evacuation plan will be paused until further notice. The decision came hours after the IMO and Oman announced an evacuation plan for more than 11,000 seafarers stranded in the region amid heightened tensions and maritime security concerns. The IMO was helping to get hundreds of stranded ships and thousands of seafarers out of the strait, where they had been stranded for months since the start of the war in late February. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington and its Gulf allies are opposed to any Iranian fees or restrictions in the Strait of Hormuz, following a meeting with Gulf Cooperation Council countries in Bahrain.
Tehran has welcomed the clarification by the Italian government over the use of its bases for the United States to launch attacks on Iran. It follows statements by NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, who said on Wednesday that hundreds of American planes took off from Italian military bases. Turaj Shirililiu has more.
Iran's foreign minister has praised Italy for its strong rejection of remarks made by NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, who said the US military used Italian military bases to launch attacks on Iran. Following Rutte's remarks, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said Italy's role in direct attacks on Iran was portrayed incorrectly. Abbas Araghchi had a phone call from his Italian counterpart Antonio Tajani on Thursday to clarify the matter. He also called for an explicit and official denial from Italy of the statements made by Rutte. According to Iran's foreign ministry, the Italian foreign minister stressed that none of his country's military bases were used to attack Iran, and that no such action would be done in the future. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai also reacted strongly to Rutte's remarks. He said NATO and its member states, including Italy and Romania, must be held accountable for any complicity in war crimes committed by the US and Israel against Iran. In a post on X, Deputy Foreign Minister for Legal Affairs Kazem Gharibabadi wrote that based on UN resolutions, if Italy and Romania bases were used to carry out strikes on Iran, Tehran would consider it an act of aggression by those who authorized the attacks. He said the statements by the NATO Secretary General give rise to the international responsibility of the countries involved. Turaj Shirililiu from Tehran for A News.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has sought to reassure the Gulf states over their security concerns when it comes to their agreement with Iran. Let's go to our Washington correspondent for more.
U.S. Gulf allies have been skeptical about the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. Their list of worries is long. Rubio says the U.S. wants a deal with Iran, but it won't do so at any price, meaning a permanent deal won't be at the expense of its Gulf allies. Now, Rubio says any tolls or fees in the Strait of Hormuz will never be accepted as terms of a deal. Rubio says that Oman has now told other Gulf countries it does not support tolls. These comments come after Oman and Iran just a few days ago had said that they were looking to jointly administer the strait. Then there's the issue of Iran's ballistic missiles. Arab countries in the Gulf see it as an immediate threat, something the MOU does not address. So many Gulf countries fearing that a $300 billion fund for Iran could be used to buy more missiles and drones. Rubio says the $300 billion reconstruction fund was not discussed, but he told reporters the U.S. would not do anything that undermines its long-standing allies in the region. Now, all of the members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, the UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait are crucial to the U.S. They have offered logistical support to the U.S. military during the war, even as they came under attack by Iranian airstrikes. That's why Rubio's trip was key here in making sure that the U.S.'s Middle East partners stay on board. Them backing off or rethinking their security relationship with the U.S. would be a huge setback for Washington. In a joint statement by the U.S. and the Gulf Cooperation Council, they said that a lasting peace would mean addressing including Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, and support for proxy groups. Alistair D'Souza for A News in Washington, D.C.
Now, more on this. France and Italy will spearhead a new multinational coalition to support Lebanon after the UN peacekeeping mission ends later this year. Speaking after talks in Antibes, President Emmanuel Macron and Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni announced the joint initiative is designed to bolster Lebanese sovereignty and directly strengthen the country's armed forces. The leaders also proposed convening an international transition conference coordinated with the European Union and the United Nations. Israel and Lebanon have rejected claims that Israeli forces withdrew from parts of southern Lebanon, despite a US official saying troops had pulled back from sections of a buffer zone. The remarks come in the middle of US-mediated talks on a phased arrangement that could see territory in the south handed over to the Lebanese army. A US State Department official described the reported move as a good faith step, saying Lebanese forces should move in to secure the area and dismantle militant infrastructure. But Israeli officials denied any withdrawal, saying military positions in the buffer zone remained unchanged. International attention has turned to the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Gdansk, where governments, financial institutions and businesses are discussing the country's long-term reconstruction, even as the war continues. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced the first €3.2 billion payment from the European Union's €90 billion support package, while Ukraine expects to sign more than €10 billion worth of agreements during the conference. Now, meanwhile, the military situation continues to evolve, with reports of intensified Ukrainian operations around Crimea and comments from US President Donald Trump praising President Volodymyr Zelensky's wartime leadership ahead of next week's NATO summit in Turkey. Joining me now to discuss further is Enrique Cosero, political analyst from Madrid, Spain. Enrique, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, is this conference as much about demonstrating political commitment as it is about reconstruction?
There is money on the way, so it proves that some sort of reconstruction or some will for reconstructing Ukraine is taking place, the negotiations. Of course, I think we are in a very premature phase or step in order to real or an actual reconstruction of Ukraine, because the war is still on and the damage is being devastating for both countries, Ukraine and Russia. I don't think that Russia is gonna be a better country or more efficient country after this, but the European Union got its eyes put on Ukraine, and the promise of those 10 billion euros are going to be quite a relief for Ukraine. But and those 3.2 billion already checked are going to be, as I said, are going to be an immediate relief. So we're talking about reconstruction, but we're only 1/3 away from the main goal. So, and I think in this situation, countries as not only the EU, but countries as Poland got a lot of things to say on about this matter.
Okay, so President von der Leyen has announced the first $3.2 billion payment from the $90 billion support package. What message does that send to Kiev and equally to Moscow?
To Kiev is sending a clear message of the willing of having Ukraine within the EU is real, it's actual, it's going to take place sooner or later. Not even worrying about if Ukraine gets into the NATO or not. And to Russia, that Europe is giving a united front, which trying to mean a strong front to Moscow. So it's not a futile message that is been sent to Moscow. But we have to face a reality here that Moscow, Russia, as much as the United States, as much China, or as much as India, or as much as even Israel, they're very, I don't want to say very efficient, but indeed they're more efficient taking resolutions and taking decisions than the EU. I mean, the EU takes its decisions by committee, and these countries they got a very strong executive power. So that means that if Russia wants to do something right now, Vladimir Putin can. If the United States wants to do something right now, Donald Trump can. And the EU decisions are taking more time that is convenient for these moments, for these times we're living. So, the decision is quite good. Trying to get Ukraine within the wing or under the wing of the EU, I think is a very good idea, especially considering how much they have developed technology during these 4 years of war. But as I said, the main extra weight for the EU is the way of taking decisions, which is not. I don't think is going to make the things easier.
And Enrique, now the conference is taking place while fighting continues across several fronts. Can reconstruction realistically begin before the war has ended?
I think the only thing we're going to see during the war is not going to be a reconstruction. It's just going to be help. You can disguise that help in whatever terms you want it, but first and foremost, for having a reconstruction, you gotta have a very calm horizon in front of you, and right now it is not. I mean, there is not even some sort of a clue of for getting a truce, or for getting a peace, or for getting a treatment, or for getting whatever the end of the war is going to be. So whatever we are facing, I think it's more cautious if we call it help more than reconstruction plans, which is, I mean, probably very elevated for the things that we are facing.
Okay, and on another front, Trump has said that President Zelensky is doing very well, quote, doing very well in the war. How do you assess those remarks given previous differences between Washington and Kyiv?
You never know, right? With Donald Trump, you will never know. We've been watching things like this for, I don't know, in the last term, in this actual term of Donald Trump, a lot of times with the Middle East conflict. So this changing opinion, this frequently changing opinion from Donald Trump. Today, Zelensky is great. Probably that means that tomorrow Zelensky is not going to be that great, because we all got in our minds that meeting that took place in the Oval Office of the White House years ago, in which even J.D. Vance was questioning about the attire of Zelensky. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Donald Trump is saying that Zelensky is great today because it's convenient for just making not too much talk about the situation in Ukraine. You will never know, as I said before. It's not a question of what Donald Trump is saying today.
Okay, Enrique, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Thanks for that analysis.
Thank you very much.
Now, we'll continue with the main stories of the day after a short break. Stay with us.
Looking back on the past is important to learn from experience. It is like a chronicle, page by page. War, Auschwitz, love, humor.
What was the atmosphere like in your home? Perhaps even a particular smell that you associated with?
The smell of the theater. Soviet Union had many shortcomings, and the world we live in today gives us little reason for optimism.
Welcome back. You're watching A News. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has authorized a 40-day campaign of strikes deep inside Russia, aimed at increasing pressure on Moscow to end the war. Moscow came under an overnight drone attack, with the city's mayor saying Russian air defenses shot down at least 39 Ukrainian drones approaching the capital. Ukraine also reportedly struck 2 oil refineries in Ufa and an oil depot in Russia's Krasnodar region, with local officials confirming the depot was hit. The attacks also triggered power outages in Russian-occupied Crimea and parts of the Kherson region. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte says tens of billions of dollars in new defence-related contracts are expected to be announced at the alliance's upcoming summit in Ankara in July. Speaking at the Atlantic Council, Rutte said the deals would mark a significant boost to NATO defence cooperation.
Spurred by President Trump's leadership, we see household names like Lockheed, RTX, Northrop Grumman, Boeing and General Dynamics massively ramping up their production to meet this moment. We also see newer firms like Anduril, Palantir and Divergent Technologies innovating on tech and production methods at pace and with purpose. That is revolution. Bottom line, the prospects are plentiful. And in Ankara we will provide the platform to showcase how we are seizing the opportunities and making this revolution a reality. We will announce tens of billions of dollars of new contracts. And when our industries from Arlington to Ankara combine their strengths and step up supply, the result is not only improved security. We are in the early stages of a defense industrial revolution that will help grow our economies and support hundreds of thousands of jobs on both sides of the Atlantic.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un supervised tests of upgraded artillery and missile systems, which included a multiple rocket launcher. State media says it's part of the country's goal to modernize its missile program and bolster firepower along the southern border with South Korea, as Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
State media says the tests included an upgraded multiple rocket launcher system, special mission warhead for tactical ballistic missiles, and extended range shells for a self-propelled howitzer. It says the latest rocket launcher is equipped with an autonomous precision guidance system. Its firing range had also increased to around 90 kilometers. State media says the warhead was designed to inflict fatal damage on major targets such as the enemy's airfields, ports, and electricity infrastructure. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says that the tests showed progress as Pyongyang pursues automation, long-range capability, and ultra-precision in its weapons programs. He says the goal is to strengthen military capabilities along the southern border, and there is a need for what he calls national defense development to make sure no enemy dare to confront North Korea. South Korean media reported that with the latest tests, North Korea appears to be focused on improving strike capability that could put South Korea within its range. Pyongyang is under multiple sets of sanctions aimed at curbing its nuclear and missile programs. Analysts say that the tests are a show of force aimed at South Korea and point to Pyongyang's efforts to fortify the southern border and integrate nuclear and conventional forces. Earlier this week, Kim Jong-un vowed to beef up North Korea's defense capabilities, citing military modernization efforts by South Korea and the United States. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung discussed the situation on the Korean peninsula with US President Donald Trump at a G7 summit in France. He said President Trump had told him it was time to pay attention to the North Korea issue. Laura Westbrook for A News in Hong Kong.
A Seoul court has sentenced South Korea's former First Lady Kim Kyun-hee to 7 years in prison on bribery charges, adding to the legal troubles surrounding the country's former presidential couple. The former First Lady was accused of accepting luxury gifts worth more than 100 million Korean won in exchange for helping secure job appointments and business favors. The items reportedly included jewelry, a luxury handbag, a high-end watch, a golden ornament and a painting. Kim denied wrongdoing, saying the gifts were not linked to specific requests. Kim's husband, former President Yoon Suk-yeol, is already serving a life sentence over his failed attempt to impose martial law in 2025. China has pledged to continue seeking the removal of US tariffs while condemning what it describes as Washington's malicious trade measures. The world's two largest economies are working to stabilize their economic relationship following months of negotiations. Mahnur Maktoum has more from Beijing.
China's Ministry of Commerce says Beijing will continue to push for the removal of US tariffs, including duties imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. It also criticized the United States for maintaining malicious unilateral trade actions. The ministry said that the tariffs and export restrictions continue to disrupt normal trade and investment and also undermine the stability of global industrial and supply chains. A spokesperson said that China remains committed to implementing the consensus reached during the recent China-US economic and trade talks. He also urged Washington to meet China halfway by removing restrictive measures. Since the trade disruption began in 2018, the United States has imposed tariffs on more than $300 billion worth of Chinese imports. China in turn responded with tariffs on over $100 billion worth of US goods. Although some tariffs have been adjusted over time, many remain in place alongside broader US export controls targeting China's advanced technology sectors. Beijing says it's willing to resolve differences through dialogue and consultation, but will continue to safeguard its legitimate development interest. The latest comments show China's position that reducing tariffs would benefit businesses and consumers in both countries, while supporting a global economic growth. Even as other disagreements over technology, national security, and market access continue to shape the bilateral relationship. Manu Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
Australia is looking at tougher enforcement of its under-16 social media ban after new research suggested many teenagers are still using platforms despite the restrictions.
Australia is considering tougher enforcement of its world-first social media ban for children under 16. The law, which came into effect 6 months ago, prevents platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, YouTube and Snapchat from allowing underage users to hold accounts. But a new study suggests the ban has had a limited impact. Millions of accounts were reportedly closed when the rules began in December. However, parents and researchers say teenage social media use has barely changed. A paper published this week in the British Medical Journal found that 85% of Australians aged 12 to 15 were still using social media 3 months after the ban took effect. The study, based on 408 adolescents, found many had simply lied about their age. On Friday, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the government would review the law.
What we want to do is to make sure that the laws are as strong as possible and that they will withstand any legal challenges which are made. These are not uncontroversial. When I say that, though, they're not controversial amongst the Australian public and amongst parents because they know that this is a world-leading ban. And I'm really proud of the fact that we are leading the world when we made this change to the law, and it was made in a bipartisan way.
He added that the government's focus is on giving the eSafety Commission enough power to enforce the rules. The eSafety Commission and Communications Minister Anika Wells has said they are planning to take legal action against multiple platforms, which face a maximum fine of $34 million if they are found to have systemically failed to uphold the ban.
According to details obtained exclusively by A News, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is set to visit Azerbaijan on the 1st of July to deeply expand strategic energy and economic ties. This high-profile diplomatic mission marks her first trip to Baku since signing the landmark EU-Azerbaijan Strategic Energy Partnership 4 years ago.
A News can exclusively report that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will travel to Baku on July 1st to advance critical energy diplomacy and regional integration. This high-stakes visit marks her first return to the Azerbaijani capital since July 2022, when she signed a milestone strategic energy agreement with Baku. Sources indicate that the upcoming discussions will centre on expanding bilateral economic engagement and enhancing collaboration in the energy sector, where Azerbaijan has increasingly emerged as a vital partner for Europe's energy security. The talks will also feature a comprehensive exchange of views on broader South Caucasus connectivity initiatives. Following her high-level meetings in Baku, von der Leyen, alongside EU Enlargement Commissioner Marta Koss, is scheduled to travel to Yerevan from July 2nd to 3rd, concluding a pivotal regional tour aimed at shaping the geopolitical landscape of the South Caucasus.
Rail transportation of petroleum products from Azerbaijan to Armenia is continuing. Another consignment of petrol and diesel fuel has now been dispatched as part of ongoing deliveries between the two countries. Gulcin Kojalieva reports.
Another shipment of petroleum products from Azerbaijan to Armenia has been dispatched by rail. The shipment includes AI-92 petrol and diesel fuel transported in 26 wagons towards the Boyukesik direction, located near the border area. The cargo consists of 18 wagons carrying petrol and 8 wagons carrying diesel fuel. The dispatch takes place on Friday as part of the ongoing transportation of fuel products between the two countries. So far, Azerbaijan has exported more than 14,000 tons of diesel fuel and over 4,000 tons of AI-92 and AI-95 petrol to Armenia. Azerbaijan's railway routes have also been used for the transit of other goods from Russia to Armenia, including grain, fertilizer, aluminum, buckwheat and anthracite. The latest shipment is part of ongoing cargo operations, with the process carried out at the railway facility. Gulcin Kojalieva, Zohrab Shirinov, A News.
The number of confirmed Ebola cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo has risen to 1,155, including 304 deaths, according to government data released on Thursday. Health officials reported 37 new infections and 5 additional deaths over the past 24 hours. They say intensified epidemiological and laboratory surveillance has improved the early detection of cases, but also highlights the continued spread of the virus through communities, with transmission increasing week by week. And over in the UK, the country's in the grip of a severe heat wave as temperatures hit record-breaking levels. The extreme heat is disrupting hospitals, schools and emergency services, while red weather warnings remain in place. Authorities warn of ongoing risks to health and safety. Zeynep Farajzadeh has more.
The UK has recorded its hottest June day on record, with temperatures reaching 36.4 degrees in Somerset, as a heatwave continues to affect millions across England and Wales. It is the second consecutive day the June temperature record has been broken, after 36.1 degree was recorded in Hampshire on Tuesday. The extreme conditions are placing increasing pressure on public services. At least 6 NHS trusts in England have declared critical incidents with heat affecting IT systems, cancer treatment equipment, laboratory testing and medical scanners. The London Ambulance Service says it received almost 8,000 calls on Wednesday, including 642 life-threatening emergencies, with crews attending nearly 3,600 patients. Red weather warnings for extreme heat remain in place until Friday evening. The Met Office warns the conditions could have widespread impacts on health and pose a risk to life. The heat wave is also disrupting education, with around 2,400 schools in England and Wales experiencing closures or disruption this week. Water supplies are also under pressure. South East Water has imposed a housepipe ban across Kent, affecting around 850,000 customers as demand reached record levels. The company says water is being used faster than it can be treated and refilled, and that supplies must be protected for essential use such as drinking, cooking and hygiene. Forecasters say temperatures will remain exceptionally high until Friday before cooler conditions arrive over the weekend. Zena Farizadeh, A-News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
Paris has banned public alcohol consumption and takeaway sales to relieve emergency rooms overwhelmed by a record heatwave. The weekend restrictions target street drinking and retail sales as capital hospitals hit a critical saturation point. Officials ordered the emergency clampdown after the Paris Fire Brigade reported a doubling of emergency calls, surging past 2,500 operations in a single day. And the FIFA World Cup has delivered another week of drama, with the group stage producing standout performances, surprise results, and several teams securing their places in the knockout rounds. And a former footballer and English pundit saying the US has no chance of winning the World Cup. Here's a look at all the key results from the past week and how they've shaped the race for the last 32. So Curacao is 0, Côte d'Ivoire is 1 in Group E, Ecuador's 2, Germany 1 in Group E, Japan 1, Sweden 1 in Group F, Tunisia 1 and 3, Netherlands in Group F, Turkey 3, USA 2 in Group D, Paraguay 0, Australia 0 in Group D. Turkish fans celebrated in Los Angeles after a 3-2 victory over the United States. Despite the result, both teams move on differently, with the US topping Group D and advancing, while Turkey exit the tournament on a consolidation high.
Turkish fans were in high spirits on Thursday night in Los Angeles, celebrating a hard-fought 3-2 victory over the United States, despite both teams already knowing their World Cup fate. Turkey, eliminated from knockout contention after earlier defeats to Paraguay and Australia, finally found their rhythm in a dead rubber match. They secured their first win of the tournament, thanks to a dramatic late strike from Kaan Ayhan, sealing a morale-boosting result. For Turkish supporters, it was a moment of relief and pride after a difficult campaign.
We are feeling good because we did the goal. We were frustrated because we didn't get the goals. But now, I mean, we will have to try again in 4 years. But yeah, it's good to be back after 24 years. Yeah.
Excited. I mean, this is the first game we actually scored, and it was a win at the end. So we are going home, but it was a beautiful game.
On the other side, US fans were left frustrated after conceding a last-minute winner, though confidence in the host nation's progress remained high ahead of the knockout stage.
I'm disappointed that we lost just because I'm concerned about where we're moving into the round of 32. But I'm excited because obviously we put, our number ones back on. So USA, I truly believe in what we are as a country, and the team we have, it's the best I feel we've had. So let's go, right? Like, we're there.
I'm still confident. I think our guys can do a lot, and I think that Mauricio Pochettino is going to lead our guys to greatness.
Despite the defeat, the United States topped Group D and move on to the round of 32, where they will face Bosnia and Herzegovina. Turkey, meanwhile, bow out of the tournament, but end on a high note with a long-awaited victory to restore some pride before heading home.
After the break, we'll continue with the main stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Manuel González, Bautista Juan, Francisco Fernández.
Why is there a list of Spanish names at a flight school in the Soviet Union?
I added a year to my real age because otherwise I wouldn't have qualified.
$1,011,697 were paid for the training.
So they gave them Russian names and nobody would know anything.
They turned them into fighter pilots in 6 months.
Flying, classes and non-stop.
There were about 20 fatal accidents. That's nothing for 850 kids who knew nothing about aviation.
Any enemies?
There were 40 of them.
I didn't see a single one.
They wore headsets connected by rubber tubes.
In an unknown language.
It was made entirely of wood and fabric.
It doesn't have any brakes either.
The I-16 was like a doll.
We flew at 6,000 meters without oxygen.
Push the stick forward.
Truly scared.
Some pilots would lose consciousness and fall.
In this way, the Republic held out for not 1, but 3 years.
Then the school was closed. If you return to Spain, Franco will execute you.
Stalin approached him and asked, are you Georgian? No, I'm Spanish.
Welcome back to A News. The United States has reaffirmed its support for Uzbekistan's accession to the World Trade Organization following high-level trade talks in Tashkent. During meetings between President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and US Trade Representative Jameson Greer, both sides emphasized expanding trade and investment while accelerating Uzbekistan's integration into the global trading system. Let's bring in our guest now, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Jeju, South Korea. Dr. Sanjay, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Uzbekistan has spent decades pursuing WTO membership. Why has accession become such a central objective of President Mirziyoyev's reform agenda?
See, President has been for many years was trying to liberalize more the economy, and this is in that direction, and that is why the entire government has been, the entire Uzbek government has been very active in making several networks, and through various mechanisms, they were trying their best over last 1 decade to have this accession. And it is moving in positive direction, and that is why US support should be also seen in that direction. South Korea, where I am standing, South Korea also has extended support, and that is why we can see that the Uzbek president's vision is somehow going in the right direction, and we won't be surprised to have the accession at hand very soon.
So for viewers unfamiliar with the process, what tangible benefits would WTO membership bring to Uzbekistan's economy?
See, having this accession would help Uzbekistan in having balanced trade, and it will facilitate global trade. And there are many products in Uzbekistan, especially many agro products are there. So, this will give the Uzbeks big opportunity to explore global markets and the regional markets, because many countries, they need Uzbek products, but, they are not able to have it due to these trade restrictions. So after getting eased these trade restrictions, it will help many Uzbeks in exporting their goods, and likewise, it is also going to help other countries to import Uzbek products. And made in Uzbekistan can be, more accessible to many people in the world. So, this accession is going to be a win-win for Uzbeks and the other countries as well. Of course, there will be challenges also, because, once you open your market, especially through this WTO accession, there will be some challenges for the local, local players in Uzbekistan as well. But, this is how the global trade works, and I think Uzbeks are going to have a good deal.
Dr. Sanjay, one last question. The talks also highlighted expanding US-Uzbek commercial relations. So beyond trade, what sectors are likely to see the greatest cooperation there?
I think critical minerals and digital products, cybersecurity, AI, these are the two. These are some areas which United States also had been focusing, and Uzbeks also had been focusing. So if I can name two, then definitely it would be the critical mineral space, as well as the artificial intelligence and digitization. These two are going to be the major ones, and under these two ecosystem, many others, including the agro, human resource, all these things are going to be facilitated. So we have to hope for the best, and the entire region, not just Uzbeks, but the entire Central Asian region are very closely watching this development, and I'm sure that this U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Uzbekistan also will be looking forward to it. I just have talked last week with the Uzbek Chamber of Commerce president in Tashkent, and she was also telling me that Uzbekistan needs Korean investments, and Koreans are looking towards Uzbekistan with with big hopes. And this WTO is going to help not just US, but there are many countries who are like-minded with US and they operate with US companies. So it is going to be a very internationally acclaimed kind of outcome.
Okay, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.
Azerbaijan is marking Armed Forces Day, celebrating the 108th anniversary of the establishment of its first regular army units. Military marches and ceremonies are being held in Baku and across the country. Established in 1918, Azerbaijan's armed forces have undergone major modernization reforms. In 2020, the 44-day war with Armenia over the Karabakh region ended in an Azerbaijani victory and the liberation of several territories. Since then, Azerbaijan has continued to strengthen its military capabilities. According to Global Firepower data, Azerbaijan has the largest combined military force in the South Caucasus, including active personnel, paramilitary forces and reserves. Fuel supply disruptions in Russia following a series of drone attacks on oil refineries are raising broader questions for Central Asia. While Moscow grapples with shortages and fuel sales restrictions, neighbouring countries are assessing the potential impact on their own markets and supply chains. Our correspondent reports from Almaty.
Kazakhstan's Energy Minister Erlan Akhenjanov says Russia has made no official request to import gasoline from Kazakhstan, dismissing reports that up to 50,000 tons of fuel could be shipped across the border. He said Astana had received no formal request, but added that any such request would be considered through the established procedure. The statement comes as Russia continues to face fuel supply disruptions following a series of drone attacks on Russian oil refineries. Refining output has declined, prompting fuel sales restrictions across dozens of Russian regions. Kazakhstan, meanwhile, says its domestic fuel market remains fully supplied by the country's own refineries. At the same time, the government is preparing to temporarily remove import duties on gasoline, diesel and jet fuel from third countries. According to officials, the measure is primarily aimed at facilitating imports from China if needed. Import volumes would depend on domestic demand. The impact is already being felt elsewhere in the region. In neighboring Kyrgyzstan, which imports more than 90% of its gasoline from Russia, reduced deliveries combined with seasonal demand have led to shortages of EI-95 and EI-98 gasoline. The government has responded by introducing temporary price controls and measures to support fuel importers. The developments suggest that disruptions to Russia's fuel sector are no longer confined to its domestic market, reshaping fuel trade and supply routes across the region. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
And that's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates.